hurt and alive.
The look on his face is pure agony.
When he gets his like second leg cut off and he's screaming, and then it's just like, "You can't hurt me!" Like,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, what a perfect movie.
Let's get this shit going. He couldn't live without virgin blood, so a virgin had to die. Welcome to I Hope You Suffer.
I want you to know that you synced up the music perfectly with the end credits scroll on my TV.
I'm gonna play this the entire episode.
Please don't. I already had to listen to it for 2 hours today. I cannot listen to it again.
It's so good. I got the Severin Blu-ray with the DVD,
great-
the soundtrack.
What a great soundtrack.
I don't. Here, we'll fucking finish the dumb intro, then we'll talk about this. This is episode 297 of I Hope You Suffer. I'm the communist house guy with the Brooklyn accent, inexplicably.
Yeah, Mario, the newsie.
Yeah. Fucking his accent. Not like everyone's accent in this movie, incredible. Anyway, who's everybody else?
I'm Andy Warhol.
Yeah, you're Paul
I was
Morrissey's
surprised
Venom-y.
to see that. Yeah.
Who are you, Katie?
What is happening here? Old woman in tavern.
Perfect.
We were talking about 1974's Blood for Dracula, a banger that Katie, I assume, did not enjoy.
Correct.
If you don't love the beautiful piano soundtrack, there's nothing you enjoyed about this film.
Yeah.
Fair.
I don't remember what I was talking about before I said doing the intro, but this movie rocks. Paul Morrissey really fucking hates Andy Warhol. I was like watching the interviews on the Severin release of it, and it's just Paul Morrissey talking about how the world is a toilet, everything's going down the shitter, and he fucking hates Andy Warhol. He's like, Andy Warhol wasn't an artist. All he would do is he wouldn't stop saying, he was like, you know, he's autistic. Andy Warhol was autistic. You guys know he was autistic. I was like, God damn, dude.
Sir.
And he just kept being like, because I guess, like all like the way the movie was marketed, it was never like Paul Morrissey's Blood for Dracula. It's always Andy Warhol's Blood for Dracula, and it really bothers him because he was like, he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So what's the story with that? I like when the credits first started and it said Andy Warhol presents. I was like, excuse me.
I think, as far as I'm aware, I think it's just financing, because I think Paul Morrissey was like part of like the Warhol's like factory crew. And go ahead, Kit.
I was going to say, even his Wikipedia page opens with he's an American film director best known for his association with Andy Warhol.
Yeah. It's
brutal.
It honestly, it seems like maybe after these two movies he did, like this and Flesh for Frankenstein, that like his relationship with Warhol soured. I don't know, because like I also listened to the commentary track on Criterion Channel, because Criterion put out a DVD of this forever ago that has a commentary that's like not great, because it's one of those ones where it's just like three people talking separately, just interspliced. So it'll be like Paul Morrissey talking about something for a while, then like Udo Kier talking about something for a while, and then there was some like film historian that was like talking in it too. And Udo Kier stuff was all really interesting. He talked about like, so they shot this and Flesh for Frankenstein back to back. Blood for Dracula was the second one, and it was literally like as they were stopping Flesh for Frankenstein, they started Blood for Dracula, and Udo Kier was told he had to lose 20 pounds in like a week to be
Jesus.
Dracula, and so he just stopped eating. And so,
God.
like, at the beginning of the film, he's like being pushed around in the wheelchair or whatever. That's because he couldn't walk.
Okay.
He literally like lost the power to like power his body because he just stopped eating for like a week.
Wow.
What a king. Him and Lance Henriksen. Always doing the most for the most insane roles. He also talked about, like, he had made, I guess, like, he wasn't attached to play Dracula originally. Like, apparently a bunch of the crew just, like, didn't realize they were making these two movies. And so it got to the end of them filming Flesh for Frankenstein, and Paul Morrissey was just like, so, you could be Dracula, right? And he was like, yeah, I guess. This is fun, so I'll do that. Also had a commitment in, like, I don't know, say they were filming in Germany, he had, like, a commitment in, like, you know, Poland or something to film another movie, and had to leave set for, like, a day and come back. And, like, that's why, because I guess Dracula was supposed to be in, like, the weird sort of bar scene that fucking, for some reason, Roman Polanski is in.
Yeah, woof.
And, like, just was like, nah, he was like, oh, sorry, I already made this commitment, and I'm not somebody that, like, I guess he was like, I'm not somebody that I don't care how small the movie is. If I told you I'll be in the movie, I'll be there. And so he, like, flew, like, 3 countries away for a day to film, like, you know, probably a 40-second role in some movie, and then flew back to finish Dracula.
Mm.
What a king.
Dedication.
Udo Kier, crushing it in both these
Hero.
movies. I don't know if, I remember, I don't know if you were on the call, or back on the call yet, when Kit and I were talking before we started recording about how I realized I should have picked Flesh for Frankenstein, but I don't think, like, if you could not get on this movie's wavelength, Flesh for Frankenstein would have been a lot for you. There's a scene where, like, someone is, like, fucking the intestines of a corpse or some shit in it, and, like,
yeah, no thank you.
So I was like, because Flesh for Frankenstein has a lot more, I think, interesting stuff going on in it, as far as, like, because it's also in 3D, so, like, it looks insane when you watch it not in 3D. It's one of those movies.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not as, like, melodramatic, from what I remember, as, like, Blood for Dracula is. I forgot how much of just this is, like, people in a castle just kind of, like, moping around.
Yeah.
But I love it. I don't know how it took me so long to see it. I had to wait till Severed and Vinegar Syndrome put both those movies out, and they're bangers. I guess, anyway, Kit, what is, outside of It Rocks, what are your thoughts on Blood for Dracula before we get to Katie's scathing indictment of this movie?
No, that's basically it. Udo Kier is the best. His overacting, screaming, and just wailing and flailing about is just incredible.
Like, sick to his stomach tantrums are incredible.
Hurling in the bathtub and, like, flopping around on the ground. Like, that looks like a man that's on the verge of blacking out because he's, like, making himself hurl so hard.
Like,
he does turn very red in one of the scenes, and I was like, that is concerning.
Well,
so dedicated.
Apparently, one of the scenes, they didn't tell him they were still, like, they never said, like, cut, and just kept filming him drinking blood. And so he swallowed so much of that fucking Caro syrup that, like,
Jesus.
So it's the scene he gets done drinking, and he kind of, like, pulls back up and he starts throwing it up because it's
he's like gurgling.
Yeah. That was real.
Oh my god.
Because he swallowed so much of it that he just started throwing it up.
That's disgusting.
He's, I think, my favorite Dracula. Like, this is not my favorite Dracula movie. I think, like, fucking Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, probably my favorite version of that story. But I fucking love Udo Kier's Dracula. His Dracula is so weird and emo and fucking, like, kids, like, just overacting.
Sad, kind of pathetic.
Yeah, there's like
A sickly little man.
Up until he
Yeah,
gets
he's not suave at all. He's just like
No.
he's
sad
he's so
in his room
like
alone.
petulant and like insane at the beginning, and then it's like having these weird like mini meltdowns because he can't find a virgin to drink their blood, and then he's like lapping up virgin blood off the fucking floor.
Yeah, fucking
It
romance.
Any Dracula movie that has Dracula licking blood off the floor is an A+ film.
Yeah, we've got some Kronos vibes going on,
Yeah,
except not a gross bathroom. Anyway,
sad.
Fair.
Katie,
Should have been way grosser.
how much did you
Yeah.
hate this, Katie?
I hated it kind of a lot. um,
Well, I'm 1 for 3 on my picks for Katie.
you know, I can't really. I think that my large issue with it is that it's just like dated. Of course, like you said, this is from the 70s, and so like I think a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie and like the plots of the movie, I'm just like vehemently against. Like the treatment of women. The fucking listen,
you mean
I
the
get it.
scene where like a 14-year-old is assaulted and also starts
Yeah.
to like it?
Yeah, so not great. The way, I don't know. Obviously, like different, wildly different times. The early 70s for views on women's rights and everything. And like I get the virgin thing, right? It's like it's a quintessential part of vampire lore. So like, I expected some of it. I just like hated everything that occurred in the movie, like especially around the women, of course. I hated Mario, obviously.
He's a kid.
He's a piece of shit. I don't. I'm not. I don't think I'm a fan of Udo Kier, really. Like, I couldn't really understand what was going on with him.
Well,
I mean, obviously now
not,
I understand more, but
this is not like a. I wouldn't say this is a movie that is like a quintessential like it is for me. Like I love his Dracula, but I don't think this is really representative of like
His greater film canon.
Yeah, it would be like if we like I don't know, we watched like I'm trying to think of like a shitty Lance Henriksen movie, like Paranormal Island, and you were like, I don't think I like Lance Henriksen.
Okay, fair.
Like Udo Kier's
yeah,
got like is fucking incredible in almost everything I've seen him in, but like he's a very specific flavor of acting.
Yeah.
And like
Definitely character actor.
Yeah, and like
guy.
this is not I don't think extremely representative of him as like an actor. This is like a real fucking weird movie from all accounts, cuz like
Yeah.
both of them were made for I think like $300,000 combined. Like I remember, I think Paul Morrissey said that he was given $300,000 to make this Frankenstein movie, and like maybe Andy Warhol, somebody was like, "Well, why don't you make 2 movies with that amount of money?"
Movies instead, yeah.
And so they basically that's what they did, and like it's basically the same crew, a bunch of the same actors, like whatever. And so, like, as much as I love both of these movies, like I absolutely see all like a lot of the criticism about them, because like they're fucking strange. Like they feel otherworldly, especially this one. Like nothing in it feels like it takes place in the real world.
No.
Like vampires aside, it's just like it's supposed to be like 1920s Italy or whatever, and like everything in it just feels like bizarre. Like
yeah.
that has a lot to do with like one of this, like, out of the 3 daughters or whatever that Udo Kier is trying to find a virgin in. One of them's got a German accent, one of them's like Italian, and one of them's got like a Polish accent or whatever. They have 3 different accents. the dude playing the housekeeper is just straight up as Brooklyn as you get, and just like refused to like do anything with his accents. I don't know how his family
I was like
ended up
so
in Italy.
shocked when he I know, because he's like, my father worked here before me. I was like so shocked when he started talking that he's just like, hey, what can I do for you? And I'm like, what's happening?
I think there's like really interesting themes in this movie, and a lot of it is the like sort of idea of like the bourgeoisie versus like the proletariat or whatever. Like, you have this like rich family that are willing to like, you know, fucking sell off their daughters to like this fucking rich stranger from Transylvania or wherever the fuck he was from. And like, and then you have like the housekeeper that's constantly talking about like taking down like rich people and like revolution and all this shit, and he ends up being like the hero that has to like save the day against this, you know, all of this shit going. I don't know. It's like, I think there's interesting things going on when you've seen it a couple times, and like, ironically, somehow the film historian in that audio commentary has the most interesting stuff to say about the movie, because Udo Kier's mostly just like, yeah, you could see how thin I was there because I didn't eat for like 10 days. Like whatever. Like, this is
I was so hungry.
This is the scene where I swallowed 3 gallons of Caro syrup.
Gross. Yeah.
And like, he has interesting things to say, but like, it's mostly just like, oh yeah, this, like, if you look at this scene, all of these outfits were like actual historic like clothes that we used, and we couldn't get any like blood on them because it would ruin them, or like if you like mishandled them too much, they would just fall apart. And then like Paul Morrissey's just like, you know what? I fucking hate Andy Warhol, that autistic fuck. And I'm like, God damn, dude, calm down.
Sure. Yeah. I will say, like, obviously, I did like the wardrobe. All the girls' dresses were beautiful. The house, even though like the theme here is that like, yeah, they were rich, but then the dad like gambled away all the money, so like everything they have at one time was really nice, but now it's like worn down or whatever. The estate that they used and like the rooms were gorgeous, obviously, but
there's a scene where like Udo Kier points out like one of the daughters that he drinks the blood of, like they fall over and land on a towel because they couldn't get blood on the tile. And he was like, oh yeah, you can see there's a towel that like we thought would look or probably looked fine on like 16 millimeter because it's like the same color as like the tile or whatever, but on like, you know, 4K transfer, it's very clear they're like landing on some sort of fabric.
Well, that's fine.
You know, obviously
Innovation.
valid criticisms of the way women are treated in this movie, but I gotta say, kind of worth it for getting the line, "The blood of these whores is killing me."
Yeah. I will say
that line delivery, incredible.
I did write that down. I will have to say that like the ending of this movie very much took me by surprise.
It rocks. It's so good.
Like, as far as like the rest of the movie goes, and like obviously again, like the script I felt was very weird, but like it is what it is. Leading up to the ending, like the ending is the only part that to me I was like really into, obviously, because we'll get to it.
Yeah,
but
it's clear when you know that like both of these movies were made on like the budget of one movie, and especially like you haven't seen Flesh for Frankenstein, but like Kit and I both have. Flesh for Frankenstein's got a lot going on with like special effects and shit, and it's clear that like they spent a majority of the money on that because like
the first movie, and then they got to this one and were like, oh.
Well, we
don't
really
have a lot left over.
Yeah, like there's not really gore until like the end. Once Dracula starts getting his limbs chopped off, that's really all you get. The rest of it is mostly
looks so good.
Yeah, oh yeah,
for,
it looks great.
I assume having $20 left.
Yeah, fair.
Like literally the simple fucking like effect of just Udo Kier being buried in the ground with his head sticking out, and then just like a dummy body with limbs cut off, and just pouring fucking blood out of those limbs. You get like some real like absurd Argento like giallo blood splurting out of his arms.
So red.
It's very red.
And it's also like very abrupt. Like the first one you're just like, oh shit.
When he loses his first arm, I literally like screamed because it just was like the whole thing was. I was really not expecting it.
It's so funny because Udo talks about the commentary and he's like, like the most difficult thing in this movie was having to run with
a fake arm.
Well, like not even that. Like he's got the stump, but it's so obvious his arm is in his shirt. But he was like, when you run, your first instinct is to swing your arms, and I can't do that. And we had no way to like tie my arm down, so I wouldn't do that. So he was like having to like remember to act and like do all this shit while also like not moving that arm. He's like, I don't think most people think about how difficult that is.
Well, it looked hilarious. So
all right, we can get into the minimal plot.
Okay. Before I start, like, I am recording with new headphones, so if you hear me mouth breathing, I'm sorry. I have no idea yet.
I'll start joining it if you do it. I'm like,
okay. I'm literally never stopped thinking about like the
Mother Krampus episode.
Yeah, and you can just like hear me breathing, and like I literally was not mouth breathing, but the little mic like this is a real headset. So previously I was recording on my iPhone, which I think is painfully obvious, given like especially the last episode, and AirPods, like wired AirPods, and so now I have like a real headset. And I'm on a laptop, so hopefully it will sound better, but I couldn't tell you.
Little known fact, Katie doesn't have nostrils, so she has to breathe out of her mouth. And if you mention it, it's real shitty.
Yeah, don't bully me, okay? Also, we kind of already said this, but trigger warning for mentions of assault. So, here we go.
I'll save it till we get to that scene.
Okay, because I really hated it. And somebody makes a joke about it, and I'm going to say it.
I think there's an interesting concept in the idea of, like, well, the only way to stop you from being a fucking vampire, like, I think in the hands of a better storyteller, or, a woman maybe, I think there's a good sort of, like, rape revenge film idea in there. It's definitely not handled at all.
No,
well,
it's
in this.
Terrible. This is like pretty much the worst way you can handle it, and I'll get into why.
It's interesting because like I feel I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about like that whole Andy Warhol crew. Like I always just kind of had this idea that maybe that because it was like the 70s and like the fucking sexual revolution and shit had happened that like I felt like maybe some of these dudes were like on solid ground and like, but then watching this, I'm like, I can't tell if it's just Paul Morrissey is a dickhead, which he seems to be, but like, I was like, okay, well, it's the 20s, so like, if the movie is supposed to be taking place in the 20s, I kind of get the idea that like you're gonna be treating women like absolute garbage because that's just what happened, but also is still happening. But like, I guess in general, I do think there's an interesting idea that like a better filmmaker could do that sort of thing with better.
Well, it's not as if that plot has not been used before, but it was consensual, and the way that it was handled in this is really terrible.
Yeah.
and I will get to why I think at that point that it's not even an interesting idea for this. Okay.
It's also he's literally about to kill Dracula, so like you're not really saving anybody. And like
no,
I will say, well, okay, I'll save it till we get there because like the film historian guy in the commentary had like some actual like interesting thoughts about that scene.
Okay, well, I have some interesting thoughts too. I'm just saying trigger warning because we will be talking about it, and I'm gonna say the word. Okay, not assault. So if you don't want to hear it, skip it. Okay, so this movie starts with the one song that's in this movie that Nathan played in the beginning. Dracula, and it's basically just like the credits over Dracula putting on makeup and dyeing his hair black, which I do think is interesting. Like, I like that aspect of him being like, I need to look more human. But
greasier.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, there's like
I need to look like I'm slathered in grease at all times.
I think the way Dracula is portrayed in this is really interesting because I feel like it's unlike any other version I've seen where like he has to like he's so like
Decrepit.
decrepit, but he's so like he's just
Frail.
like I'm sure there's like some like societal thing being said in the idea that there's no virgins in Germany, but they think there are in Italy because of like the church there that like I don't understand.
They're so religious.
But like I do think it's like an interesting idea that like he's so like hard up for like good blood that it's like actively making him look like worse, which I feel like I don't think I've seen in like a vampire movie or like Dracula specifically.
I mean, I definitely have, but normally they go a route of like making him look kind of like skeletal and not just like a sickly pale Viscount kind of thing.
Going on with like Gary Oldman at the beginning.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember why he looked old. And
yeah, I mean that is kind of like a trope as far as vampires go. I personally have never seen this version of Dracula where like he's just like a little like I'm a vegetarian. I'm so tired. Excuse me.
I like that
and
he has to
like
eat like virgin vegetables.
Like what the fuck?
I saw. I'm gonna go one step further of like the veganism and be like I could only eat virgin
raw
food
vegan
as well.
Virgin
vegetables.
Virgin vegetables. Okay, so yeah, he's like putting on makeup, like literally putting on makeup, putting on a little blush, some lipstick, dyeing his hair, except he's got no reflection, so that's crazy.
Can't imagine how hard that is.
I know. We meet Anton, who is his servant, who is awful. Says he basically like is coming in and telling Dracula that they need to leave soon. Essentially because they're vampires in Romania and people are starting to like notice his presence, right? And he needs to stay hidden. And so he suggests that maybe they should go to Italy because there's lots of virgins because in Italy a woman has to be a virgin in order to get married. So there's streets full of them, he literally says. Just streets full of virgins. Yeah, we find out that Dracula needs to consume the blood of a virgin or he'll be dead in a few weeks.
So is this concept like I'm like why would you just not like suck the blood of children?
I feel like you could. So
like it seems like
he doesn't seem like he's above it either.
I was gonna say it seems like a very simple thing for this would just be like start killing kids.
I think
or is this a Twilight thing where it's a big no-no to turn a kid?
Probably. I think that what they're getting at is that if
children don't have blood.
That's true. You don't get blood till you're 14.
That's right. Yep. It's just snot and boogers in there. Coursing through them.
Powered by snot.
I think that the thing that they're getting at here is that somebody who is of age but a virgin is like choosing a life of purity, and so that makes their blood special in some way. Like I don't necessarily think that it has to do with like just
it's way more slurpable.
You're 7 so you're a virgin, hopefully, right? Whatever. I think it's like the thought that they are choosing to save themselves and that makes them pure in some way, and it's like obviously extremely
dumb,
stupid, fucked up, or whatever. But I think that's more what they're getting at. Like the person should be of age to give consent, but they've chosen that life for themselves.
I guess I was just more curious, like, because I've never read like Dracula or like really probably any vampire books, and so I wasn't sure if there was like some fucking loophole stipulation thing or something or what. Because I was just like the entire time watching it, I'm like, dude, there's got to be children all over the place.
Well, and I think that also it comes down to some like really perverse idea of like they and like some people still think this, and like obviously it goes along with really deep-seated, like without getting into like a tirade about religion, it goes back to some like really deep-seated religious ideas where like it's romantic in some way. Like this whole like it really has to do obviously with just like sex and stuff.
Sure.
So they're like, oh, virgin, pure. I'm gonna take you as my whatever. So it just is not the same for which. Yeah.
If he could have just made it like 30 more years, he could have just started like stalking out like dudes that paint fucking 4K figures. wait for Kit to comment.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
All right, anyway. I was gonna say World of Warcraft, and then I was like, wait, Kit paints those figures.
Yeah, it's Warhammer.
Go find some fucking Gundam weirdo.
Hey, leave Gundams out of this, okay?
Dracula could take over a Gundam.
You just easily go get any Gamergator.
Yeah, for real. Go find Ian Miles Chong.
Gundam for Dracula, the sequel.
Yeah, we should make a sequel to this where it's just like somehow the stake missed Dracula's heart.
And now he's in a Gundam.
Yeah, now he's got Gundam legs and arms.
I'm always saying, give Dracula a Gundam.
I've said it, and I'll always say it.
I bet we could get Udo Kier to make that movie.
100%.
He seems like you throw like $1,000 his way, maybe his plane ticket and lodging, he'll be in.
Yeah, I mean, I would just have so much respect for him if he did.
Udo, I know you're listening.
Definitely.
We'll throw a shark in that movie too, just because.
You have to, yeah.
All of a sudden you'll be walking around in your Gundam and a shark will just land on the beach and a fucking dog shark will come out of its mouth.
And the dog shark's in a Gundam also.
The dog shark will be voiced by Lance Henriksen, of course.
Yeah, perfect.
Tony Todd will be in here somewhere, probably.
I think so. He will.
All right, anyway.
Okay.
We gotta stop making better movies for people that are listening.
Well, seriously, steal our ideas and make millions of dollars. Yeah, he needs the blood of a virgin or he'll die. Okay. The servant says that so they basically like have this really drawn out conversation about like the logistics of moving. Like literally.
Dracula is me when I moved to New Jersey. I'm like, well, what about my CDs? What about my records? What about these books?
What do I do?
What am I supposed to do with these curtains?
Yeah. The servant is basically just like, hey, no worries. We have a car. We can drive around. Also, Count Dracula is sad because he can't bring his taxidermy birds with him, which,
Same.
you know, he's also leaving his sister behind. I like don't really understand. I guess there's just like no virgins at all. So like both of them are dying, but she's like farther gone than him. So she's just like, take me to my tomb. See you later. So he like
say rocks that Romania is just like they're out of virgins.
Yeah, we don't have.
There's a virgin shortage.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like I feel like you have to like have some sort of like throw in any line that explains why you can't just like eat kids, because like it makes no sense.
Well, also the idea, like, and I don't think that most Dracula lore, like, obviously, like, the blood of a virgin thing is, like, you know, part of the original lore, but I don't know that it specifically says you can only drink virgin blood. I think it just, like, prolongs your life. So they're trying to say in this that, like, he has to have virginal blood, and I'm like...
My thought was
quote unquote virgins don't just like stop existing. Like
my thought was just that like virgin blood was always supposed to just be like the prime blood, but you could drink like whatever blood.
Well, yeah, but not in this one. Only virgin.
It literally, I think all of that is in this movie solely for like
him throwing up.
Well, the commentary about like pure and unpure religious bullshit, and it kind of like I feel like mires it down a little bit for me, where I'm just like, just let him drink whoever's blood. Sir, stop being so. I think he's just being picky, if you ask me. Like, just get your shit together. Anyways, yeah, he's leaving his sister behind. He is the first of their family to leave Romania, and he just must so that he can continue their family line or whatever. This is when Anton says, Don't you worry, the streets will be full of Voyagins. They just are running around in flocks. Then they leave, and like I was so confused at first because the only shot we give of the car, he like gets in the car, and the only thing you see is just a huge coffin and
a wheelchair strapped to the top, and I was like, what is going on here?
Just the necessities.
Yeah, my coffin and my wheelchair.
I was like, he's like, what if people see the coffin? And he's like, we'll just say it's a family member. We're taken back to their home country or whatever.
Just on top of the car. It's fine.
This, like, I missed the part where they came up with the excuse for the coffin until later somebody offhandedly mentions it, and I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me? Nobody thinks this is strange that there's just, like, a coffin? And, well, anyways.
And then they want it brought to their room.
Yeah, and Mario's like, the mistress doesn't want the house to be stunk up. And I was like, excuse me? What is happening here? Yeah, gross. Okay. You know, different times, I guess. Okay. Okay, so they stop at an inn where Anton inquires, literally goes into this inn and is just like, hey, do you guys got any virgins around here? Like, just asking about virgins.
So, any virgin blood on tap?
Like, anything. Yeah, they, like, walk in, and she's like, everybody comments about how sickly the Count looks. And he's like, do you have any food? And she's like, yeah, we got salami, we got chicken, we got this, we got that. And he's like, oh, no, that's okay. Do you have any virgins, though? And so the tavern lady and, like, this guy that's drinking there just start, like, gossiping about the different families. They're talking about the Di Fiore family, who has 4 daughters. The oldest one is ugly, though, and also she's a tramp. Excuse me. Poor Esmeralda. And so Anton is, like, trying to get more information about the sisters, and is like, okay, like, are they really religious? And the guy's like, yeah, I'm sure they're religious. They have a really nice house. And I was like, what's the correlation here?
That's what I say about anybody who's like, I see, like, a nice house. I'm like, oh, they're probably religious.
Definitely Christian. Am I right?
That's how it works in Texas.
Yeah. Well, so...
In New Jersey, I just assume they're, like, the Mob or Real Housewives.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Or, yeah. So they're basically, like, getting information about this family, right? And he's like, okay, well, the Count is, like... They basically tell this story about how the Count lost his first wife and absolutely, like, loved her, was in love with her, absolutely could not bear to marry another Romanian woman because it would look too much like her. So they decided to come to Italy and find an Italian girl because they won't look alike. And also they're religious. They must be virgins.
Yep.
As you do. So, yeah, I'm looking for a wife. I'm literally driving around the countryside. Oh, had to pick up my dead relative along the way. That's why we're here. No worries. They're strapped to the hood of my car. It's fine, though. And
who
so
hasn't been
they're
in
like
that situation before, though?
It's
relatable.
Like, pretty much every other week, you know, so it happens. So they're like, oh yeah, we'll tell them about you, like, no worries. So then Anton and Dracula go upstairs where they argue, essentially because Dracula is, like, just throwing a temper tantrum about how he hates Italian food, which is relatable. So
yeah, just to you because you can't have it.
Too much garlic.
Yeah, I, like, literally. Yeah, he just throws
Katie's
a fit.
Always eating her blood bread instead of Italian food.
Oh my god, literally vile. That scene is so gross. Can
we just talk about his tantrum on the bed about how, like, where he's just like...
That's literally where we are. I wrote, Dracula throws a tantrum and convulses on the bed. You know, hasn't had any of that Voyaging blood. He's really upset.
So good.
He literally is just, like, convulsing. He literally is, like, having a conversation with Anton and then just throws himself on the bed and is like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, sir.
Now that's relatable.
Yeah, you know, that's fair.
Anton seems like he fucking hates his job.
I mean, I would too. You gotta...
What an eternity.
Yeah. Okay,
I assume this is another situation where dude was, like, promised he would be turned into a vampire and just never is.
I mean, sure.
Vampires are real liars.
They are, and they also seem, in these types of situations, they seem, like, so like, they can't do anything on their own.
Yeah, useless.
Their servant has to do, like, every fucking thing for them. Here, my lord, here's some tomatoes, you know, like, just get your own tomatoes. Okay, so this is where we meet the Di Fiore family. I just called them mom and dad. I don't know what their names were. They don't really matter that much. But basically, the mom tells the dad about the count and is like, hey, this guy's walking around, heard we got a bunch of virgins, wants to know if we want to marry off one of our daughters or whatever.
You want
And
to
the
marry off a
dad,
virgin?
yeah, the dad is like kind of like a poetic. He's like, listen, we don't have to force it. We don't have to force them to marry if they don't want to. Like, it's fine. And the mom is essentially just like, they're spoiled brats and they're lazy and we need the money. So we're definitely marrying off one of our daughters.
This is our chance to get rid of them.
Like, please. And this is where we find out covertly that like they don't have money, right? Obviously, they just appear to be wealthy. Again, the house, though it looks kind of like worn, is like literally gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah, literally, like to the extent of like it looking bad is like all of the furniture is covered with like sheets.
Right. So Anton visits the house first and is basically just like, hey, Count Dracula is rich and he needs a wife. Are your daughters virgins? And the dad is just like, I don't know. They seem too young to like be going through this arranged marriage or whatever. And the wife is just like, oh no, yeah, they'll meet him, bring him in. And then this is when he's like, oh, like what's the deal with this guy? And he's like, oh, his name is Count Dracula. The dad decides that he likes that the word Dracula is 3 syllables. So he's like, yeah, bring this guy in. I love it.
It's very like auditorily pleasing.
Sure,
there are worse
I
reasons
agree.
to marry off your daughters to Count Dracula.
Yeah, one of them is not his name. His name is very cool. Okay, so there's this like scene where Anton like goes into a local tavern and like tries to get more information about the girls, and he like plays a game and he gets in a fight with somebody, and I was like not really sure what all this was happening for, but essentially it's just because there's a young girl who gets hit by a car outside of the tavern, and he takes a piece of bread and goes out there and pretends to faint so that he can like soak up the blood in a piece of bread and bring it to Dracula.
That's why he still has his job.
Yeah, he is innovative,
Lateral
if
thinking.
nothing. Yeah. Because this girl didn't die. Also, they say that maybe she's like 13 or something, 13 or 14, right? So the Count literally sucks blood out of the bread, and it is vile. The mouth noises that he makes, literally grotesque. So the next day, the mom tells all of the girls about the Count, and this is when we find out that the oldest 2 girls they're not the oldest, they're the 2 middle girls. There's 4 girls. Esmeralda, we don't have to worry about for a long time because apparently she's an ugly tramp. This is literally what we're told. And when you find out why, I hate poor Esmeralda. And then the youngest girl is 14, so they're not even considering marrying her off yet, thankfully. So the 2 middle girls...
Well, just give it a minute.
Well, no, yeah. We find out very quickly that they are not virgins because they've been sleeping. I wrote with random New York servant guy. He's like a groundskeeper guy who is like sleeping with both of them, but they're also sleeping with each other for some reason. So...
Yeah, the relationship
there's
going on here, but like with this fucking Brooklyn dude and all of the sisters is interesting.
Very strange. And there's a lot of just like random scenes of like him and them like sleeping together that I left out, obviously, because it doesn't add anything to the plot. This is when he says, literally, that he thinks that he wants to rape the 14-year-old. Like, literally flat out says those words.
I forgot how, like, early this is. Before he even fucking, like, knows there's a fucking vampire, really.
That's why him offering, quote-unquote, offering to take her virginity, I was like, no.
Like, I mean, like, I know it's not that scene yet, but, like, the the film historian guy in like the commentary like talks about that scene, and he's like, like it's interesting because like it is a thing that like could be done in like a more altruistic way, but the fact that he mentions it earlier in the movie, like you basically just get the idea that like he's not really doing this to save her, he's just doing this because he wants to, but he just has an excuse to do it now.
He is so excited when he finds out that Dracula's a vampire because he's been literally trying to plot how he can like assault her the whole movie. And then, okay, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So yeah, so he like literally says that to her sisters, and then they're just like hee hee, and then they make out with each other. And I was like, what is going on here? Okay. Okay, so the Count then comes to meet the girls, but he's like come to stay at their house, right? And he's immediately like, hello, I am the Count. If you'll excuse me, I need to retire to my bedchamber immediately. And this is what I wrote. No one thinks that having a coffin with him is weird. And then somebody mentions the thing, and immediately I wrote, oh, they think that there's a dead family member in the coffin.
I would just be like, I don't own a suitcase.
Plan work.
This is all my stuff.
So, right, still weird. Yeah, except that like he wanted to have the coffin brought up to the room, and the wife is like, absolutely not. Put it in our chapel, our private chapel. Okay. Mario, oh yeah. This scene is just like, essentially, is it Saphiria and Rubia?
I don't remember any of the daughters' names.
I think those are correct. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them correctly, but that's what I wrote. So the one girl, Saphiria, is talking to Rubia, and they're basically just like talking about like what's going to happen with Count Dracula. And Saphiria's like, I don't really want to marry him, even though I'm the one that they're trying to set up with him, because I think I'm in love with Mario. And Rubia's like, haha, stupid idiot. Well, that's your problem. And so Saphiria goes to talk to Mario. I love that Mario just has like a basket of bread and like 3 bowls of onions on his table.
Yeah, what do you have on your table?
Not 3 bowls of onions, that's for sure.
Not eating well.
Dude fucking loves onions.
Onions on bread? Just raw onions on raw bread? I guess not raw bread,
no,
but
just
on blood bread.
Raw bread.
That's the good shit right there.
Yum, yeah. Just like eating mouthfuls of dough and onion, raw onion,
God.
Delish. And basically, she kind of like, and fuck this guy. He's the worst. He's the fucking worst, because she's basically just like, hey, like they're trying to like set me up with the Count, but like I don't really want to do that. And he basically is like, I don't know what his problem is, but he's like trying to act like he's not interested in her that way, but is also jealous over her maybe marrying off with the Count, and he just like is like and like assaults her, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? So
I think this dude just like for some reason has like a sister fetish and can't handle the idea that he can't have all 4 of them.
I mean, yeah, he definitely, even though like he's technically their servant, and he's like, he also like has this like weird conversation with Dracula, and like we kind of talked about how he's like interested in like like the rise of the working class or whatever. He has this like weird thing where like he has to like assert power or like control or like ownership over the girls, even though technically he's like lower, quote unquote, lower class than them or whatever. So like maybe that's part of it, but I just was like, you stop manhandling these women, okay?
Yeah, I like the sort of like concept of like the thing that like a rich person would be the more afraid of than like Dracula would be this poor guy corrupting their fucking like bloodline.
I mean, yeah,
and I just think the you don't have to do it with like a bunch of fucking assaults.
No, I mean, I guess so. Yeah. Okay, so this is when the mom tells the girls that like Dracula is sickly because he's a vegetarian, which I thought was so funny. I'm like, you know what? In the 20s or whatever, probably. Like, what are you even like? He's eating like raw tomatoes and carrots, and like that's it. They think. You know, he's eating like his Romanian lettuce or whatever the
Man,
fuck.
fucking
So
one
like,
dude is
sure.
only eating bread and onions. Like,
And he's like the workhorse guy too. So I don't
that
know.
dude has one of the most baffling filmographies I've ever seen. Joe D'Alessandro, I think his last. He's in both of these movies. Theodore Rex, somehow. Just like a shit ton of like good Italian movies, but Theodore Rex like
Theodore
really
Rex.
fucking like blew my mind.
That is so funny to me.
Here you are in a bunch of like very good Italian movies, and then Theodore Rex.
I was trying to see like what he did in the movie, but there's so many people in this movie.
Yeah, that movie's got a massive cast.
Okay, so Dracula is like freaking out again because he needs his Voyagin blood. And Anton is like, listen, chill out, it's fine. We're gonna go try and find the girls' bedrooms. It's probably gonna be hard though because the villa is so large.
Brag.
Like, wow. Safiria, yeah, brings him tomatoes. So she goes to his room and is like, oh, I've brought you a snack, and it's just like fucking tomatoes and radishes, which I do love. I do love a radish. And Dracula is like, hey, so just wondering, like, do you think you want to like marry me and come back to Romania? And she literally, this is a direct quote. She literally says, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I feel
She's
like that
so-
is probably like every like rich daughter in like the 20s response to any of these, where they're just like, I don't really have much of a choice, so yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, I guess. This is also really inappropriate because Dracula starts asking her about being a virgin, and he's like, listen, it's really important to my government and my family that I marry a virgin, but I don't really care. To be honest with you, I don't care at all. I would rather you be a dirty slut and no.
I love his like, I'm gonna trick her into admitting she's not a virgin before I drink her blood sort of thing.
Yeah, he's like, I literally don't give a shit. I would really rather you actually be really well versed. I want you to know all there is to know about sex.
All I care about is you've been dicked down a lot, right?
Yeah. And she's just like, she obviously lies, and she's like, well, sorry to say, but I have no idea what it is. I've never even heard of it. I'm sorry. I just don't even know. And he's like, oh, you've never had a boyfriend that touched you here or here? And he's like touching her places, and I was like, absolutely not. And she just is like very nonchalant about the whole thing. She's like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm sorry you want me to be experienced, but I'm just not. I'm just a Voyagin, you know? And he's like, then he starts yelling at her, and he's like, you're lying, you're not a virgin. She's like, yes, I am. They're like screaming at each other. And then he just like jumps on her and bites her and like sucks her blood for kind of a long time.
All of the blood drinking scenes are so long.
He's just like,
and he's got his mouth over
blood,
her entire neck somehow.
Her whole neck, and is also kind of humping her in a way, and she's just like...
Oh, yeah. I noticed that when I watched it this time. I was like, he's got a lot of gyrations going on.
He does. And she obviously, you know, is like, she's like into it at this point. You know, it's cool, it's whatever. But it's gross, right? Oh, after he tastes her blood and realizes, like, obviously she's not a virgin because we've seen her sleep with that dude a bunch of times. He's like, ew, gross, and he gets sick off of her blood and like throws up for a long time.
I wish he literally said, ew, gross.
He's thrown up into the bathtub for like 10 straight minutes, right? This isn't even like the best or the last throw up scene, by the way, if you're wondering. The next day, the mom is upset because Safiria like ruined her chances with the Count, and also makes a comment about her being sick and like sent her to her room or whatever. So this scene is so strange. They're in the kitchen, and the mom and Esmeralda are making soup for Dracula. No garlic. We're just making it from scratch or whatever. And they talk about how Esmeralda is very smart because she's read all of the cookbooks in the library.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. It's just like a very weird conversation. And then, he's like, I want to have lunch in my room. So he asks, like, Mario's gonna like push him up to his room or whatever. Um, Dracula grills Mario about the girls having had boyfriends. And Mario, of course, is like acting dumb. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is when we find out that Mario has like lived on the premises for like however long because his dad used to be their like servant or whatever, and now he is. Again, doesn't explain his accent at all.
I want to know what happened to the
And
dad.
yeah, and this is when they kind of have their like argument about like reading, and Mario makes some kind of comment about like classism essentially or whatever, and then Dracula is like, I don't like you, I'm going to my room, and tries to like walk up the stairs, but then just like falls and convulses a bunch, and Mario essentially just like watches this happen. Okay, so
That scene is so good, like him just like walking up the stairs, but like having his weird tantrumy convulsion thing happening, and like Mario just looking at him like, what the fuck?
and then it's got that like piano music playing behind it,
Perfect.
like you're supposed to feel bad for him or something. I was just like, I hate both of you. Well, whatever. I actually don't hate Mario. To me is the real villain. Like, I loathe this dude.
Yeah, Dracula's
okay.
just doing what he like has to do.
He's
for the
like,
most
whatever,
part.
yeah.
Like, it's not
I mean,
necessarily great, but like
he could just die if you ask me, but
Yeah.
sure.
the world needs a Dracula.
That's fair. Okay.
Look, I would take Dracula
so-
over either. I would take this Dracula over either of the presidential candidates we currently have.
Udo Kier as Dracula
Yes.
as president. Okay.
Could you imagine those State of the Union speeches?
Wow. Okay, yeah, so he just watches him convulse on the stairs. So later, Rubinia and Dracula are talking. She asks about his wife, and he's like, oh, I loved her so much. And she's like, oh, did she bear you like a child? He's like, oh, no, she was too delicate for that. Like, I didn't have the heart to put her through that. And so Rubinia, for some reason, thinks that, like, because she didn't have children, she must have had really nice clothes.
Yep.
Again, not really sure the correlation here. Asks about like where she liked to shop, and Dracula's just like, I don't fucking know. Like, are you a virgin or not? And she's like, oh yeah, totally. I am totally a virgin. Totes a virgin. I also don't even know what that is, so don't worry about it. And they're like arguing about it kind of, but they're like standing in the bathroom where she's like standing next to the mirror, like leaning against the wall looking at him, and he's like looking in the mirror at nothing because he doesn't have a reflection. So he's basically just like grilling her also about being a virgin. She's lying, and then she turns to see that he has no reflection and freaks out. She literally screams so loud, but like, I guess the villa's so big that just nobody
Yeah,
heard her being attacked.
I don't know if you remember them saying that the villa.
It's just
is
so
very
big. You get, yeah. And so she freaks out, and so in turn he has to bite her to like subdue her. But again, he's like, ew, gross. And this is where he throws up for like 20 minutes. He turns very red in this scene.
This is the
like the gurgling.
The blood of these whores is killing me.
The blood of these whores is killing me. Amazing, of course. Yeah. He this is like where he sits up and he's like gurgling.
Yeah, this is the one where he like
out.
drank too much of it and is just like throwing it all up.
And you can tell, like you can much tell. This is not acting. He's experiencing trauma in this moment on film live. Yeah, the blood of these whores is killing me.
It's the fucking best line of the whole movie.
Okay, so the dad is like, hey, so sorry, I have to leave on business. Like, I'm really sorry that you have to like stay here and deal with trying to marry off our daughters, but I gotta go. Peace out, and like leave.
This is woman's work.
Like literally, he's just like, see ya. This is what this is like one of my favorite interactions, and also very disgusting, but just this like little one where like the youngest sister, whose name I think is Perla, and the mom are like sitting at a table, like embroidering. The mom is like hemming one, like trying to fix it one of her dresses, and is like commenting on how like this is your last nice dress because like all of your guys' dresses are fraying and like coming apart because we're poor or whatever. And Anton comes in and is basically just like, hey, so we're gonna go because your two daughters were not virgins. Just like so casually, just like, by the way,
BT dubs, your daughters are sluts. We gotta go.
Your slutty daughters are not virgins, so we gotta get because it's killing Dracula. He's
Literally,
like,
time to skedaddle.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you know, your slut daughters are killing my master. So take that
And-
take that as you will.
Yeah, and the mom literally is just like, well, that's a shame. Sorry to see you go.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Perfect.
And then Anton looks at Perla and says, how old are you, little girl? I'm sorry, if you're referring to her as little girl, you should not be asking that question. It is none of your concern.
Again, this just
The
leads
mom-
to my theory that he could just be eating children.
Well, yes. And so the mom is like, she's 14. She's way too young. And I actually am shocked that the mom is not going for this because she seems
No, she kind of does though. She's like, she's too young, but I'm willing to hear it out. Like, she's not
Anton-
against it. She just kind of like pretends like she is.
Yeah, she's just kind of like, well, if you're gonna just,
I mean, how rich are you?
Yeah, like what kind of money we're looking at here?
Can we take
and
these
then
sheets
Anton
off the couch? Are you that rich?
Anton is basically just like, well, maybe in a couple years you'll make someone a great wife. Barf. So then Perla, like after this like interaction, goes to Mario and says, hey, like mom wants you to pack up the Count's car because they're leaving. And like something's going on. My sisters are sick. I don't really understand what's going on. And then they kind of just like have a conversation about how fucking weird Dracula is. And there's also this like conversation going on in the background all the time about how they're like, well, you should just marry him because he's obviously really sick and he's gonna die soon. So we'll get his money faster. So just like deal with it. I was like, okay. And then this is when like Perla is like, I'm really worried about my sisters. Like, they haven't spoken or left their room since, like, their meeting with the Count. Like, I don't really know what's going on. I'm worried. He immediately comes on to her in this instance, and he's just like, hey, how come I never see you around my cottage? And she's like, well, why would I go to your cottage? Like, he's trying to imply, obviously, that he wants to, like, sleep with her. And she actually doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, doesn't know what he's implying because she really does not have the experience, right? So she's not lying. And
There's my neighbor.
That's Mario revving out to assault a 14-year-old. So she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He tries to touch her. She runs away, right? Terrible, awful. Randomly, like, even though they're supposed to be leaving, Dracula's, like, wheelchairing himself around their villa and ends up wheeling into Esmeralda's room and starts, like, talking to her about, like, what the deal is with the family. And he's like, there's a lot of, like, really nice stuff here, but, like, what's going on? She's like, well, it's all broken because it's old. And she reveals that basically their dad gambled away all of their money and furniture. And so they're poor because of that. And he's also, like, not having them go... He's, like, not, marrying them off to get dowry or anything like that. He's just kind of, like, letting everybody chill and do whatever they want. And Esmeralda is just like, yeah, so we're fucking poor. And my sisters are lazy, so I don't know. And they kind of, like... bond, and Esmeralda is like, I am trying to like preserve the like traditions of my family. Like, once my parents go, I'll be the head of the family, so I'm like doing everything that I can. And they kind of like bond over this idea of being like the spiritual successors of their families or whatever. Like, they feel duty bound to do that or whatever. And then this is where Esmeralda says that the reason she is a quote-unquote tramp is because she was engaged for a couple months and it didn't work out. And so now the family thinks that she's like used old trash, never to find love again. So she's just like a spinster now. And again, I can't stress how often people refer to her as like ugly. Like, leave this woman alone. She seems lovely. Like, and she basically is just like, I'm so sorry that I didn't get to know you better. Like, see you later. Because he's got to leave, right? This is like, meanwhile, while they're having this conversation, Mario has gone into the chapel and opens the coffin to find it empty. Wow.
Not again.
Yeah, I hate when that happens. The two sisters, Safiria and Rubiria, or whatever, go to Perla and show her the bite marks on their neck and physically check if she's a virgin. Absolutely not. Like, no. And they're just like, okay, she's, check. Oh yeah, she is. Let's bring her to the count, because like, they've been bitten by him, obviously, so they are basically like under his control or whatever. They basically say that because they weren't virgins, like if he were to bite a virgin, they turn into a vampire, which also like goes back to that question of like, if he can only drink virgin blood, is he just like drinking to kill the other people, but not some people? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's something. I feel like there's something interesting with that concept that just isn't explored in this.
Yeah. So they're under his control, and they're basically like, okay, we have to bring Dracula Perla because she is actually a virgin or whatever. Again, 14, so she is a child, right? And so they basically like grab her and are like trying to bring her to the count. She breaks free and is like running through the vast villa and runs into Mario, and he's just basically like, hey, guess what? Count Dracula is a vampire. And she's like, what is that? And he's just like, basically just a religious pervert.
Yeah.
He literally just says, he's just a religious pervert. Oh, okay.
That boils down every vampire movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is when Mario's just like, hey, guess what? Like, if you want, totally up to you. I'm just trying to be a nice guy here. Like, Dracula's definitely going to kill you and suck your blood and stuff. I could just like take your virginity if you want. And she's like, no, that's okay. He does it anyway. And while this is happening, it's also a very weird scene because they're literally just like standing up against a wall, like physically nothing. That's like the way that she's like, nothing is, it's very strange. And she says no. He's like ripping her clothes off and shit. Again, she's 14. And while this is happening, the mom walks in and is like actually not as upset as I feel she's
upset.
Be.
Again, it's like the thing about Commoner like infecting the bloodline. That's what she's mad about. She's mad that it's the help, not that her daughter's being assaulted.
Yeah, right. So she's basically just like, hey, oh geez, stop it, right? And he's like, listen, lady, Dracula's a vampire. And you've been a stupid idiot for letting him come in here and, like, infect your daughters and stuff. And he's like, come with me, I'll show you. So they all go out of the room. Dracula immediately comes in and starts licking Perla's blood off of the floor. Grotesque. And I don't know if they actually show her or if they just allude to it, but essentially Esmeralda comes in while this is happening, right?
No, they show her.
Okay. It cuts to the rest of the group standing there having this like conversation about Dracula, and Mario's like, don't worry, girls, I'm gonna kill this guy. And then Esmeralda shows up looking so sus. She literally walks in with like a scarf around her neck, and she's like holding it in place, and her eyes are so wide, and she's just like, hey guys, nothing to be concerned about. I haven't been bitten or anything. Like, I'm totally fine.
Yeah, there's an entire thing throughout the movie where she is constantly, like, covering up her neck while the other sister isn't. And it's like to show that she's trying to hide that she's like secretly like down with like being with Dracula or whatever.
Dracula.
Which
Yeah,
like you
definitely.
know, and then like I don't know, it's like this whole like thing about like her trying to hide it and the other sister's just like, yeah, I don't know, I got bit by him, it sucks. And the other sister's like, this rocks.
Yeah. So, and this is the point that really, really, like, if you haven't noticed, already have very strong feelings about this whole situation with Mario. This is what really pushes it over the edge to me, because they are basically like having this conversation. Yeah, I'm gonna kill Dracula. Everybody stay together. Like, don't separate. Esmeralda shows up. Like, hey guys, totally normal here. And he says like, hey Esmeralda, you need to just stay away from Dracula because you're the only virgin. So like, we've already established, right, that the whole point of this for Mario was that he wanted to assault Perla because she's young and pretty. And they made a point of telling us over and over again how ugly Esmeralda is. And that's why it really solidifies that Mario is, like, literally does not care about saving them at all, because he's not willing, quote unquote, willing to do the same thing to save Esmeralda that he did Perla. And I was just like, I wish he died. I hate him so. I've almost never hated somebody fictional more than I hate this guy.
I really like a vampire movie that like,
he's the villain,
yeah, that
right?
you know, like the quote unquote hero is like the least likable one, where you really are kind of like rooting for Dracula in it.
Definitely, yeah.
It doesn't help again that Udo Kier is playing it and like rocks.
Okay, so yeah, he's just like, hey, you know what? You're a virgin, right? So just like stay away from him. Also, I do not give a shit about you, see ya. Meanwhile, Anton and Dracula are trying to get the coffin to like leave the house or whatever, right? Because it's like very obvious, whatever. And Mario just walks in and like axes the coffin to pieces while they're holding it, which I thought was so funny. They're just like, and then they just like run. So Anton and Dracula split up, right? Because they're running. Anton comes upon the mom and the sisters in the hallway, and the mom has a gun, and she's basically just like, you piece of shit, like, how dare you come in here and infect, mess up all my life, I blame everything on you. Even though, again, this wasn't really their fault. He just, like, stabs her and then runs down the stairs, but she starts shooting, literally shoots him dead. Meanwhile, Mario is chasing Dracula around, and Dracula goes to, like, run down the stairs. Mario just axes his whole arm off at the shoulder.
Incredible.
And it's like, it was so startling to me because, like, the way that the scene is, Dracula's, like, running down the stairs and he, like, puts his hand on a railing and then Mario axes it so that it falls off, but, like, the hand is still holding onto the railing and blood shoots everywhere. And it was so jarring because I was like, what is he going to do with an axe? Oh, okay. Chops his arm off. They run around, right? Chops his other arm off. So now Dracula is just, like, armless, like, hissing at this guy and being like, stay away from me, stay away from me.
It rocks that, like, the most threatening you ever see Dracula is after he's losing, like, all of his limbs.
Yeah.
And all it is just him, like, hissing.
And, like, I'm so sorry, but without arms, what is he gonna do? Hope that you get close enough for him to, like, bite you? Like, that's not he's done. He's, like, done, right? So then Mario is just kind of like, I'm not scared of you, you suck, get out of here. And, like, chops off one of his legs, and Dracula falls on the ground and is just, like, kind of, like, flopping around because he doesn't have any arms or a leg. And then he, like, cuts the other one off too, and Dracula's like, you can't hurt me, I'm all powerful, haha. He's, like, literally hemorrhaging
It's
blood.
like flopping.
So much blood.
So much blood. He's like, I'm not worried about it at all. Then all of a sudden, Esmeralda comes out and screams at the top of her lungs. I have never heard anybody scream as loud as her. And is like, no, my like, obviously, very obviously has fangs, right? And is like, no, my darling. What? She's a lamp. Oh, she's a vamp. She's a vampire. Yeah.
She's a lamp.
She is a lamp.
She turns into
By
the
the way,
lamp from
she's transformed into
Lampire.
a lamp.
Amityville 4 or whatever it was.
Yep. This whole thing was an Blood for Dracula, Amityville.
I'm in. Oh, that's the only way an Amityville movie's about to be good.
Amityville for Dracula. She's screaming. She's like covering him, and she's like, "Please, please, I love him. He's my everything. I'll take him away. You'll never hear from us again. Like, don't kill him. I love him so much." She's like literally lost it, and so Mario takes the axe handle and just like stakes it into Dracula, and then Esmeralda like impales herself on it, and
I love it.
Great. She's like, "No, my beloved."
I feel like it's a thing I've never seen in like a vampire movie before, where like the whatever, like even if it was just like an assistant or something, like sacrificing themselves after the fucking vampire's dead.
Yeah, and I mean, I do feel bad for Esmeralda, right? Because it's like she was like genuinely liked Dracula, even though he had no personality in my opinion.
Disagree. He ate that blood bread pretty cool. Like, what else are you looking for?
Well, like you don't.
He listens to My Chemical Romance.
Yeah,
okay,
he's just like me.
He's every MCR fan you've ever known.
But she like genuinely likes him and likes talking to him, and like in her mind,
I feel like this Dracula would be less 2000s emo and more like Rites of Spring, late 80s, early 90s. Like, he's definitely... I guarantee if you asked him his favorite album, it's like Pornography by The Cure.
Yeah, I literally was about to say he's a Cure fan.
When he's feeling like real, like he got some virgin blood in him, that's when the Depeche Mode comes on.
Yeah, right. Something a little upbeat for your soul.
Udo Kier.
Yeah,
I need Udo Kier to be on Cameo so I can buy one and ask him to sing Depeche Mode for me.
I'm sure he has one.
I don't think he does. He's
but
too
yeah,
busy filming fucking 40-second cameos in every movie Lloyd Kaufman couldn't make it to.
Well, there you go. But yeah, so she like really thought that this was like her way out, right? Like, I'm gonna be a vampire and live forever, like fucking sick. Immediately her vampire husband is like killed by this fucking dweeb, Mario. And so she just decides to end it, which, you know what, fair. And then Perla comes running out and sees them dead, and Mario is just like, tut tut, and like leads her away, and then it abruptly ends. And I was like, oh, well, hell of a finale, I'll say.
Yeah, it's definitely like you could tell how much of the budget went into the first movie. Like, because like literally the only action or anything in this is like the last 5 minutes.
Well, and I don't necessarily, like, for me, that's fine, because, like I said, like, even the quote-unquote, like, blood drinking scenes were nothing. It was just, like, him sucking on a girl's neck or whatever. Then they have the blood when he's, like, throwing up or whatever. So when... I feel like they did it in a smart way where it's like, hey, well, we only have money for, like, this one stunt. Let's just do it in the last, like, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was smart because it was so unexpected.
I feel like if they had the budget, what this movie needed was, like, maybe a scene before they leave Romania or whatever that's, like, him getting the last of, like, virgin blood he could find. So you, like, can see why he needs that. So I feel like maybe one kill towards the beginning would, like, improve it a little bit. But, I still love it. It is what it is. Udo Kier, killing it. Mario, best character put to film.
Fuck you, Mario. Get bent.
Kit, are you distraught to find out Linda Hamilton will never play Sarah Connor again?
I just can't believe it. I'll never get over it. Terminator will never be the same.
Isn't she only in, like, the 3 movies?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
1, 2, and then that one from, like,
Dark Fate
4 years ago.
Yeah, Dark Fate.
And, like, when she did that one, she was like, yeah, no, this is it.
Yeah, she's got to be probably, like, what, her 70s now?
I think so.
I
mean, she was in great shape.
Yeah,
for the
she still looks good in
one,
the screenshot from Dark Fate I'm looking at.
Yeah. Could easily beat the shit out of like 80% of the population, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Did you see they're re-releasing Alien into theaters for Alien Day this month?
Oh, hell yeah.
I might have to see. I don't know when Alien Day is, but if I'm off, I might have to try and go see it.
April 26th.
The day before my birthday.
What day of the week is that? Do you know?
Friday.
Oh, yeah, I'll be at work.
Oh, is it a Friday?
Yeah, because my birthday's a Saturday. That's the only reason I know.
They had the calendar memorized. I was like, damn.
Katie, at the beginning of every year, memorizes.
Yes, that's
No,
right.
calendar.
I think the only other news thing I saw was the fucking 3 people from Blair Witch Project being like, yo, fuck Blumhouse and Lionsgate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't get into that right now.
Sure
yeah,
you can.
I no. I cannot. Trust me, nobody wants that.
All right. Katie, what'd you watch in the last 2 days?
I was gonna say a fair amount, but kind of not actually. I watched this movie from 2002 called Wishcraft, and it was so stupid.
Should've watched Wishmaster instead.
It did have Meatloaf in it, so surprised it wasn't great.
I don't know. Meatloaf is in Fight Club. Fight Club's very good.
It was like essentially like, who was this guy? Michael Weston.
Michael Meatloaf.
I wish that was his name.
Michael Meatloaf. It was like basically about this guy who gets like, he was like a nerd. He's like a high school student, even though he's very clearly like 45 in this movie. Like gets a thing that will grant him wishes, and like his wishes all revolve around this like popular girl that he's had a crush on. But then also there's a murderer happening. It just was like very stupid. And actually I fell asleep too, so I don't know. Then I watched all of the 1 season of the 2002 Twilight Zone TV show reboot or whatever. One of the worst openings to a TV show I've ever seen in my whole life. It was okay. Like, nothing to write home about. It was on Tubi, so it was free, and I was like, I'll just throw it on. So many famous people who are like famous now, obviously, so I love that, and it felt nostalgic, but like by no means do I think anyone should run out and watch it. Then we finished season 5 of the X-Files, so we took a break and we watched all of the Fallout TV show. Overall, very good. Walter Goggins.
I keep seeing pictures of him from women, and it's just a picture of him, and it just says wood.
He is like the shining star of the show to me.
Yeah, he is in like almost everything
so
he's
good.
in.
So good. He's like not even, I don't know. He's great. He has this like accent. He's like like the cowboy guy, whatever. Great. I think overall I really liked the show. I think my only critique is that I felt it was predictable, but
I don't
whatever.
know literally anything about Fallout, so all I've seen is the picture of him looking like fucking Red Skull in a cowboy hat.
That's essentially what he is. It's really good. I think it's like, if you, not you specifically, but in general, even if you're like not a fan of the games or have never played one, I think it's, if you like a post-apocalyptic kind of like shows, it's like really interesting. And for a Amazon original, I thought it looked pretty good. Like the set designs are great, the costuming is great. Anyways, and then we did watch the first X-Files movie, which was like pretty interesting because they reveal like the actual plot behind what's been happening for 5 seasons in a movie.
Yeah.
Which to me is insane. And again, I thought about you having said that you went to go see the movie in the theaters without having seen the show. I don't understand how anybody could understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's that's the one where there's like they're in like fucking Alaska or some shit, right? Like,
yeah.
That's the one I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no fucking idea
for what's going on. It's like, I don't know, crazy to me. So we watched that last night, so we'll be resuming with X-Files now, and I think that's it aside from, my ghost stuff.
All right, what about you, Kit?
So I watched Sorcerer finally, and it's fucking incredible.
The Friedkin?
Yeah, about the guys that have to
Yeah.
like ferry dynamite and big trucks that they built from scrap.
I saw that was on
Absolutely.
Criterion. That's on my like short list.
It popped
To
up
get
on there,
to.
and I was like, "Fuck yeah, man!"
Obviously, I get to Freddy Got Fingered before it leaves.
Oh yeah.
The fucking
Uh,
the Razzies section on there, incredible.
it's so good. I added all of those to my watch list. What a great concept for a
Like,
playlist on your
it's so good.
app too.
Like having like Cruising, Freddy Got Fingered, and like Under the Cherry Moon back to back to back. Showgirls on there. What a fucking
Yeah,
murder's row of
like
incredible movies.
Geely's on there too. I think there's a couple other things. I was like, God damn, this is actually really killer. What are we doing with the Razzies here? But then the only other thing I watched was Phase 4, which fucking slaps.
God, I can't wait to watch that.
I thought I had seen it before, and then I started it, and I was like, oh no, I have not seen this movie that's all close-ups of ants looking like fucking alien monsters that have landed on the planet. Like,
I got that Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome, and I'm like, really want to
I'm
dive
buying
into
it. Once I have money, I'm buying it.
Yeah.
It's so fucking good.
was it
Also,
called?
fuck ants.
Phase 4.
Phase 4.
Like, I don't know how they filmed this in the 70s, but it's like all close-ups of ants, like, you know, just doing their own ant things, but they seem so fucking
Menacing.
strange.
I mean,
like, oh, this isn't a creature that lives here. This is fucking horrible.
I love watching some of those like nature run amok movies from like before we had a shit ton of like they talk about like Jaws when they made that. They didn't have like a lot, like barely any footage of like sharks.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you could maybe see pictures
Just gotta
in
make
like
it
a
up.
book, but like they had no like they had very little to go on with like making that movie, and it's just, I don't know, I love that shit.
It's incredible how they do some of the stuff. I'd love to see the behind the scenes footage making of stuff, because like there's a scene where there's an ant like chewing on a cable in their lab, and then like a praying mantis swoops down and fucking eats its head, right? And it's like, this is a real thing. A real mantis ate a real ant's head, and then it gets like blown back by the wire into like a circuit board and just like gets totally fried and explodes and shit. It's like, how do you do this? How do you do this with real tiny creatures that you can't train? What the fuck?
I'll bump that up on my watch list, see if I can watch it by the next time we record, and tell you whether like any of the bonus stuff on it talks about that shit or not.
Take an edible and watch it.
No, I had a fucking last night. I had 2 edibles and some ibuprofen, and decided to watch a bunch of the David
Start of
Lynch.
a great game.
I watched a bunch of David Lynch shorts and lost my goddamn mind. Have you watched Dumbland, Kit?
Mm-mm.
The fucking weird little animated things he made? Fucking baffling. What a fucking king. I watched Lynch/Oz as well, which was incredible. It's on Criterion Channel. It's just like a bunch of visual essays about the correlation between The Wizard of Oz and David Lynch movies. It's really interesting. Like John Waters does one of them. Oh, it's really good. Highly recommend. Other than that, I rewatched Army of Darkness. It's fucking perfect. I forgot how good that movie is. And then Caitlin and I watched 89 Batman, which is a banger. Not enough Prince, but still good. Alright. Shout outs, Katie. I thought you said no.
Nope.
Fallout.
Oh yeah, nuclear fallout.
That's 2 weeks. Two
Yep.
weeks in a row we've gotten Fallout shoutouts. It's your turn
Oh,
next week,
yeah.
Nathan.
That's probably
We
not
need to
gonna happen.
convince the people.
What about you, Kit?
So for one of the chapters in Warhammer, they added like female members to it, and all of the fucking worst people on the internet are having a meltdown about it, and it rocks.
Seems
So
accurate.
shout out that. Shout out Lady Space Marines.
Like, what else could you want, honestly?
It's so good. You've got so many people that are like
didn't
tweeting about it that have never given a shit. They're like, oh, it's gone woke.
How
like,
have we
who
not
are you?
like been over this since fucking the end of Metroid? I don't understand.
Right? Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
My shout out is the Lonely Island podcast.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet.
That's so good. I could deal with. I kind of wish there was a better host to it than Seth Meyers, but like,
Yeah.
I as someone who doesn't watch SNL, like especially anymore, like I still have this weird fascination about like the behind the scenes stuff with SNL. So it's like really interesting hearing like how they all got hired and like just in general what it takes to like get any of their shit on the air, especially with like how weird their digital shorts were, especially at the beginning. I'm dying to get to the one where they keep shooting each other.
I that scene like has lived in my head since I saw it when it originally aired.
It's so fucking funny. Like the two cops come in and read the note, and it's like everything that happened, and then we're gonna shoot each other.
I love it so much. It's so funny. I just saw that the episode they just dropped is about like Dane Cook, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to it tonight at work. The first episode is so good. Just like, because like they'll start telling stories about SNL, but it just turns into just like funny personal stories and shit. I don't know. It's very good.
Yeah, just some friends.
Katie, what are we doing next week?
Oh, Fallout. No.
All 10 episodes. Or 8.
We're just gonna, Kit and I are gonna comment watching Katie play Fallout.
Okay.
Live stream.
Yep. That's what's gonna go. I'd rather do BioShock, to be very honest, but I'll do Fallout. Let's do 2010's Frozen.
Okay. I have that on DVD.
Is that the one with the Animorph guy and they get stuck on the...
You fucking know it is.
Animorphs.
Yes. He's the dude from Animorphs. That's all I know.
Is.
I don't know. I have like zero context for Animorphs outside of like the memes of the book covers.
It's Harry Potter for kids that actually had good taste.
Yeah. Some of this... Okay, well, we'll get to it. I have a lot to say
I said what
about...
I said. Fight me, fucking
Potterheads,
you losers.
I have a lot to say about Sean Ashmore and Animorphs, so...
Yeah, Sean Ashmore, that's his name. He was an X-Men also.
Yeah,
Yes.
you could watch him in Wolf Girl, where he's got a fake micro penis in the movie.
You know, it happens. He was also in Cadet Kelly. He's just like...
The Ruins.
Yeah, well, can't say I liked that one, but he's great. And he is, in my opinion, the better of the better Ashmore, is what I call him. But...
I gotta try to add that to the list so I remember.
Yeah, I was between that, honestly, and like the original Pet Cemetery, and I was like, well, I'd rather talk about Frozen.
I feel like
I'm definitely gonna text Jill next Monday and be like, "What movie are we doing?"
Yeah,
I'm gonna forget.
I feel like if we ever do Pet Cemetery, it would have to be in context of like that and the sequel, or like not the sequel, the remake.
Yeah, I feel like it is better to. Yeah, and I thought, actually, you know what? I didn't even Google to see what it was on.
Like right now it's only showing Vudu and Roku.
Oh, shit.
So, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Steal it from your local library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like something that's been around long enough that I would not be surprised if it was on, like, Internet Archive or some shit.
Yeah, well, we'll
14 years.
figure it out.
Yeah. Alright. Gonna let it go next week. I assume that's what we're watching.
You know it.
That's the one I'm gonna watch. Be like, I don't know. Like, where's the fucking snowman? What are you guys talking about?
Where did the moose go?
I had, like, one of the times Caitlin came to visit before I moved to New Jersey. We watched Frozen and The Descent back to back. Because they hadn't seen either of them. And I was like, about to have watched two of the most upsetting movies.
I actually have not seen Frozen, which is crazy. I refuse. I will never see it.
Well, I meant the good Frozen, not the fucking snowball
Okay.
one.
I was like really confused. I was like, why would you
Like
yeah,
I still like the dude dropping and his legs breaking
yeah,
is one
magnificent.
of the few things in a movie that's like really made me like cringe or I'm like, oh god.
There's a scene in The Descent also that fucked me up, and I try not to think about it because I hate it so much.
The movie's so fucking good. Alright. Kit, that means you're up after Katie and then episode 300.
I gotta find something she's gonna hate more than Blood for Dracula.
You don't have to,
Ebola
actually.
syndrome.
No, you don't have to.
I had texted Kit and I was like, how bad do you think Katie would be if I picked Ebola syndrome? Because that movie, you think this was bad. That movie's got
I said
like
very.
3 or 4 different like sexual assaults in it, I think.
How
It's
about
a lot.
none?
Yeah.
How about no more going forward?
A handful of actually murdered chickens.
Yeah.
Oh.
But you get to see Anthony Wong carry a child through the streets yelling Ebola and spitting at people.
Oh, well,
Give and take.
a sight to see.
Yeah, it's fucking, it rocks. The movie's so good. Alright, if you'd like to support us, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/ISufferPodcast. There would be something on there soon. Katie and I gotta record an episode on Logan with Jeremy sometime soon, I think. And then Katie's gonna make me watch the fucking Green Hornet.
I don't know why you're being shady about it. It is so good.
Kit, have you seen Seth Rogen's Green Hornet movie?
I have not.
It's so good. I should have picked that as
I
a good movie.
find it hard to believe that movie's gonna be good, but we'll see.
Oh my god, I love it so much. I can't wait.
It occupies the same space in my mind as Jonah Hex for some reason, so...
No.
I at least
No.
remembered Jonah Hex was a movie. I forgot the Green Hornet was a movie.
No, it's... No.
You can leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. You can follow Kit at Hidden Kitstery and Kitrification of Blood. I think I was supposed to say follow us on Instagram at IPSuffer Podcast before that. Follow Katie at Werewolf Face. You can join Katie's Patreon at patreon.com/werewolfface. You can listen to the podcast 8K Movie Club. Alright, Frozen next week. We're going to continue... Katie, I'm going to make Katie do the entire episode as Udo Kier Dracula, though. Yeah, just throw tantrums and just change all of the V's to W's and how you talk.
Easy.
All right. I hope the blood of these whores isn't killing you, but why?